The Senegalese Chief of Defence Staff, General Mbaye Cisse, is visiting the Gambia as a special guest of the Chief of Defence Staff, Major General Mamat O. Cham. After a closed-door meeting with the Vice President, General Cisse said he was at the seat of the presidency to discuss security cooperation between Banjul and Dakar.
Senegal,
ECOMIC tasked Senegal to work on peacekeeping here, and we have a battalion here, and I also check on them, how they are doing, whether they are carrying on the mission as expected. We also discuss a lot of areas of cooperation.
General Cisse hailed the strong bilateral ties between the Gambia and Senegal, and the two armed forces in particular. He disclosed that he also discussed the possibility of scaling up the cooperation to include joint deployment of peacekeeping contingents and capacity building.
The expectations are numerous. First, we want the Senegalese army and the Gambian army to visit the Bignona border area in the coming weeks or months to strengthen security by having joint border patrols. We also think about having joint deployments of peacekeeping contingents.
Soon after, the UN resident coordinator Seraphine Wakana also called on the Vice President. Emerging from her meeting with VP Jallow, the UN diplomat said she was at the State House to bid the Vice President farewell, following the end of her tour of duty in the Gambia.
I had a very broad range of issues to discuss with the VP. But in summary, I would say that I am leaving the Gambia with a sense of satisfaction for my 5 years in the Gambia. I came here end of 2018, just 1 year after the impasse.
Madam Wakana described her time in the Gambia as successful and attributed it to the commitment of the country's leadership. She cited supporting institutional reforms, transitional justice, and COVID-19 support as some of the key successes registered during her term in office.
The context where I started was a clear time for the UN to support the country in building institutions, particularly the democratic institutions. I would say that in that domain, quite successful on what we did in transitional justice and the number of reforms that we supported. I would say that, unfortunately, during COVID time, we would say that instead of focusing on what we're doing, we shifted to humanitarian affairs. And I would also say that for that part, Gambia did well.
Although they spoke separately, the two praised the Barrow administration's commitment to democracy, good governance, protection of human rights, peace, security, and economic development. Alagie Mbye, GRTS.